But at the end of the day, it's really asking good, solid questions, learning about your customer, and listening to what they have to say.
Yeah.
And based on what they say, then reacting to that and putting together the best package that fits them.
All right, we're here on Kickin' It with Kapok. Today we'll be talking about sports sponsorships and professional selling, and we're lucky enough to be joined by Ryan Helfrick. He works at the Tampa Bay Rowdies and also, I guess, now the Tampa Bay Rays. And he's a sales professional. He has a marketing degree. He's also worked in Major League Soccer with FC Dallas and the Tampa Bay Bucks with the NFL. And he has a deep understanding of how marketing and sports intersect. Is there anything else we should add, Marilla?
Well, I guess we can go a little bit back to, what was it, April of last year when we met Ryan.
Yeah.
And here we are. So I guess let's talk about a little bit about the intersection between sports and local businesses, and like, how do we end up meeting? Like,
Yeah,
how did that
absolutely.
happen?
No, that's a great question. So we ended up meeting, I think, actually right before the season kicked off in March. And Jake reached out to me and mentioned that you guys were a new local business and looking to get your name out there to the masses. And with the Tampa Bay Rowdies playing at Al Lang Stadium in downtown St. Pete, we thought of some unique opportunities to provide visibility for Kapok Marketing and put together a package that fit your needs. And here we are, right?
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, time just flew by.
I know.
And it's
I haven't
like,
even known you guys a year.
Really? Has
Here
it
we
not
are.
even been a year?
No.
Yeah.
oh my God, you're right. But it will be a year
Very
in
soon.
April. This is like shocking.
I know.
Like, it seems like we have had so many conversations where you come to our office and
I think it's just because we slacked off with those goodie bags and Ryan had to constantly come pick them
I
up.
know we feel bad.
They're good goodie bags.
I know, but
I
like
like 'em.
every time I'm like, oh, this is last minute. Ryan is gonna come to pick it up.
No,
and-
it worked out well. And the fans liked it too, right? So it was
I
something
hope
to get
so.
into the fans' hands each and every game.
I always I would look around the stadium sometimes to see if I see one of our bags, to see if like someone left it behind or
You guys were
trashed
in the
it.
fancy seats. The bags were in the general seats. So.
Did you ever find any bags where
No,
someone
they
threw
were
it?
always picked up.
Really?
Yeah, somebody picked them up for each and every game.
All right.
And I never found them after the game, whether it was in the stands or anywhere else.
Okay.
So we added some swag to the bags as well. We threw in like a Rowdy scarf and a Rowdy's t-shirt and a Rowdy's
okay.
hat.
Okay, so you picked up some of the slack where we didn't.
Nah, I wouldn't say it was slack, but I mean, since it was taking place at our game,
Yeah.
we obviously wanted to throw in some of our swag
Yeah.
into the bags as well. So it worked out.
Well, I
Worked out
feel
really
like
well.
we have made so many of those bags and you came over so many times. So it feels like we've known you
You made
forever.
34 bags.
Did we really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So we did 2 every home game, 17 home games.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right. Well, I guess let's talk about some other stuff about sports marketing, and we'll have some, I guess, questions. Jake, you have a question, or you want to get going?
Sure. So how did you get started in sports and marketing? And maybe you could talk a little bit about how the two came together for you.
Absolutely. So, growing up, I grew up in Northeast Ohio. My
Okay.
father was involved in sales his whole life. He was a sales manager. And I always saw him out on the job doing public speaking, presenting to individuals, going to networking events. And I had a passion for sports, right? And kind of took after my dad, and I didn't mind public speaking and getting in front of people. Being in a leadership role in college soccer as captain of the soccer team. And then once I got done with school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, right? One
That
of those
seems
situations.
to be the case for everyone.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I'll get a marketing degree
Yep.
and we'll just kind of figure it out from here. It sounds kind of fun. And
Yeah.
the classes don't seem too tough, right? And I can play soccer, get decent grades, and we'll figure it out afterwards. So my first job out of college, I worked for a recruiter.
Ooh.
And I sat in this room, and it was like Wolf of Wall Street style in terms of just a table and a phone and people just making dials. no computer in front of me. Everything was off of paper. Gave me a couple pencils. Had me listen to Zig Ziglar for my training. Like,
You
I
know,
watched 2 or 3 videos, and I
I
was
kind
like,
of gotta respect him. I read one of his books.
he's good, right? Don't get me wrong. He has some great things to say.
Yeah.
But I sat there for like 2 weeks, and I'm making phone calls, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I
Oh,
was like, this is what the real world's like.
yeah.
And I knew that I had a passion for sports. So I went home after work one day, and I said, I'm not working there anymore. Like, I need to find something that I'm passionate about. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do a good job with it. And I'm probably not going to put in the time to learn it either. So I'm not saying that's the best attitude to have, but as a 22-year-old, that was kind of where I was at.
Yeah, yeah.
So I did some research, and I found a organization, Game Face Academy, located in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And it was a professional sports training center, right, for individuals that graduated from college, had a degree, wanted to break into the sports industry. And you had to pay a certain amount of money. I don't remember what it was. It might have been like $3,000 or $4,000 to
Okay.
fly out there, do a 2-week training course, and then afterwards they would help place you with a professional sports team. So I gave them a call the next morning, had an interview with them. You had to go through an interview process to get in. Went through the interview process, which I think anybody gets in through the interview process
Yeah.
if you're willing to spend that amount of money. But anyways,
It was just going through the motions.
absolutely. So once I got accepted to that, I was done at the other job. I let them know, like, hey, listen, this isn't for me. And flew out to Game Face Academy in Portland, Oregon, did 2 weeks of intense training, 10, 12-hour days, and then had the opportunity to interview with multiple sports teams. So, you know, as a kid, and then even just coming out of college, you think right away, like, oh, if I go to this, I'll get a job in the NFL or Major League Baseball or NBA, NHL, whatever it is, one of the major sports leagues. And my first like 5 interviews were with single A baseball teams and like minor league hockey teams in small rural areas. So I think I interviewed with a single A team in Boise, Idaho,
Okay.
which cool, right? But
Yeah.
not necessarily what I wanted to do. I was thinking bigger picture. But having played soccer, I knew that I wanted to be within a professional soccer organization. So I interviewed with 2 or 3 different Major League Soccer clubs, had the opportunity to sit down and meet with the VP of Sales and Marketing from FC Dallas, and he ended up hiring me, and the rest is history. I literally packed my bags 2 weeks later, didn't know anybody there. First job in sports, my salary was, I believe, $17,000 base. Yeah,
Could be worse.
could be
But
worse.
you said base, so which means you
So
had
there was
commission.
opportunity to make commission,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
But not having much money saved and being irresponsible with my money in college. $17,000. I was like, man, am I really doing this?
Yeah.
But the opportunity presented itself and moved down there on a whim. And from that point forward, I knew in order to make it, I was going to have to sell. So you learn really fast when you're depending on, you know, paying the bills, feeding yourself.
Yeah.
You gotta do it.
Moving somewhere, no more mom and dad,
Yeah.
helping out. So that was the start of it. So I was at FC Dallas for 4 years, had a great experience there, moved up the ladder, learned a lot, and really where I'm at today. And a lot of the, I guess, methods of sales that I use, I learned during my time at FC Dallas.
Really?
So, yeah,
So you consider that like your foundation?
I would say that Game Face, the training that I received at Game Face within those 2 weeks that I went there, along with being at FC Dallas, that's my foundation. So I would say Game Face was really, gave me the fundamentals to sales,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And then once I got to FC Dallas, I was very fortunate. They sat me next to, my cubicle was next to one of the top sales producers in Major League Soccer.
So you could watch and learn.
So I remember the first day my boss was like, you know, shadow Evan, right? So I was like, okay, I'll shadow Evan. So I'm sitting next to Evan, and Evan's like, he's going through some of the different ways that he sells people and talks to people and starts conversations and questions that he asks. But Evan's super focused, and he's super focused because he makes the most money in the company, right? And he doesn't have time to waste
And you're
helping
just
me
kind
out.
of
So
there,
I'm
like in the
there,
background.
right? So, and it wasn't, he didn't mean it in a necessarily like he wasn't trying to be rude,
Yeah.
right? But at the end of the day, he had a job to do. And I remember him saying, he said, listen, Ryan, the best way that you're going to learn,
Just to do it.
just get on the phone,
Yeah.
right? Start talking to people. You're going to screw up. You're going to make mistakes,
Which is so
which
scary.
is really scary, right? But luckily, I had the fundamentals from game-based training, so I had an idea.
Yeah.
And I was passionate about soccer. So speaking to people about soccer on the phone, that was something else, right? That I was comfortable with and familiar with. And really what I did, I had a notepad, and I would just listen to Evan in between phone
And take
calls.
notes.
And I would take notes on things that he would say. So I'd hear how he would answer objections. I would hear how he would present to individuals, create urgency, get through the gatekeeper, right? So if he's calling the company, and, you know, the secretaries who always answer and won't put you through, I listened to how he got through the gatekeeper. And then I also, on that same notepad, after every call that I made, I would write notes on areas where I needed to improve. So maybe during my conversation, I was saying too much.
Yeah.
Or asking close-ended questions that would just get me yes or no answers.
And
And then you would
everyone
have
asks
those
those.
very awkward moments of silence. Like, do you like soccer?
Yes.
No. Or no, right?
Or no.
And then you're like, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Right?
What does Zig Ziglar talk about? Is he the one who talks about having the 20 belly-to-belly conversations a day or something where you have to, like, connect on a deeper level with the person?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's peeling back the layers, right?
Yeah.
And it's really building a relationship. And it can be tough or intimidating to do over the phone. You only have a certain amount
Yeah.
of time, right? And you need to grab people's attention
Yeah.
very quickly. So that's where I really got my experience in ticket sales and phone sales and speaking with people. And the first time I realized that, okay, I'm getting somewhere with this is I remember getting a call back from a company in Dallas. I don't even remember what the company was, but the lady called me back. I swear I left this lady like 20 messages. But every time I left her a message,
Yeah.
it was about something different. It wasn't the same message every time, right?
Ryan
So
was
it could have been,
finessing her.
yeah, it could have been like, have exciting news. Our schedule was just released. We just signed a player. We have a big game coming up. We have an appearance in your neck of the woods, whatever it might be. And she called me back and she said, Ryan, I have no clue who you are, right? And I'm not even interested in soccer,
Yeah.
but I'm going to buy group tickets for my company to come out, and I'd like to meet with you at the game. And just so you know, before we even meet, have your resume ready because I want to talk to you about a job here, because if my sales reps were as persistent as you were, then I'd like to discuss an opening with you. So, you know, some young sales reps, they get into the mode where they just feel like they're bothering people, right?
Yeah. It's like
But
a
if you're-
mental block.
Right. But if you're calling them with good quality information and information that's of value to them,
Yeah.
and you're handling yourself in a professional manner, and that you're and if you're showing the individual that you actually care about learning more about them and building a relationship with them, than just, hey, I'm here to sell paper tickets to you to get you out to a game and make commission, then they'll talk to you, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, right? And at the end of the day, that's what sales is about, and that's what I like about it so much. It's meeting different individuals, hearing their stories, hearing how they're successful in certain areas, right? Hearing where they struggle in other areas, and then trying to fill the gaps with some of the assets that we have to provide for them. So
It's true.
Well, it sounds like you're pretty persistent or tenacious with sales, and you also played competitive soccer in college.
Yeah.
So which one's harder? Is it harder to try and win the soccer game, or is it harder to close the sales deal?
So I think it's a little bit different, right? When you think of soccer, and I know every sport says this, regardless of the sport that you play, or every athlete says this, regardless of the sport that you play. Sports is a team game, right? So you're relying on others as well. You have to do your job, don't get me wrong. But it's a team game, so you're not going out there and winning and losing on your own. But similar, even on a sales team, whether it's with the Rays and the Rowdies or when I was with FC Dallas, you still have team goals, right? And you're still working together to hit your team goals. You have individual goals as well, just like you would playing competitive in soccer, right? So there's a lot of similarities between the two. You have to prepare for a game, right? When I played soccer in college, you needed to get in shape. You needed to train daily. You needed to review film. Before I go to a meeting, I need to,
Be in shape.
Yeah, right. I wish. Be familiar with the company, right? Understand what the company does.
Yep.
Understand who they're marketing to, what the demographic they're marketing to is, know who their competition is, and just understand a lot about them. So there's a lot of similarities between the two. I feel confident in both.
Ryan.
But I will say this, in sales, you're dealing with different personalities, right? So you may get in front of someone and you could have the best pitch or presentation put together for them based on what you think they need. But really, if it's not a good fit or if it doesn't fit in terms of what they're doing from the marketing end, then it might not be the best fit for them, right? So I would say sales is probably a little bit more difficult. Right?
Yeah, sales is scary.
Yeah, it is. It is for some, right?
Yeah,
Until you get
not
the
for
hang
Ryan
of it.
though.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say there's moments when you get into meetings and
Yeah.
you doubt yourself, and just like anything else, you might go to 2 or 3. Listen, you may go to 10 meetings in a row where you get no's, and you start wondering, like, do I know what I'm doing?
Yeah,
right?
so how
Am
do
I
you get
asking the
yourself
right
out
question?
of that? Like, how do you keep on keeping on?
Yeah, so I think one, you have to revert back to the fundamentals, and you look back at where you were and where you are now, and you know that, okay, I've sold in the past, I've been successful in certain areas in the past. Yes, there's areas that I need to improve upon. Here are maybe some of the weaknesses that I need to work on, but at the same time, maybe I need to change my pitch a little bit. Maybe I need to change the way I'm doing things, right? Maybe I'm researching too much and I'm going in with thoughts in mind of what would be the perfect fit for them, and I'm not
Yeah.
listening.
You're
right?
boxing them in and
Yeah.
not letting them express what they want.
Right. So I would say that's the biggest thing, right? When it comes to sales, everybody thinks that it comes down to the pitch and the presentation, which I agree with. That's a big part of
Yeah.
it. The likability of the individual and building the relationship. But at the end of the day, it's really asking good, solid questions, learning about your customer and listening to what they have to say.
Yeah.
And based on what they say, then reacting to that and putting together the best package that fits them.
That's
Yeah.
one of a few of the things that I remember most memorably from when I first talked to you. I won't do it justice, but you would say things like that, like, well, why don't you tell me about what you're trying to achieve as a company and see how we can meet those needs?
Yeah, absolutely. Because listen, I can put packages in front of companies and set up meetings all day long, but then I'm wasting their time, and
And
I'm
your
really
time,
I'm
too.
wasting my time
Yes.
too, right? And that's the
Yeah.
one thing in sales. Time is everything.
Time
right?
is
Time
money.
is money,
I know.
right? So at the end of the day, it's really finding out, what are your overall objectives? What would you like to see come of this? When we get to the end of this, what do you want to say? What do you want to see in the perfect world, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you want to see this come to fruition? And then let's work towards that together. And that's a big part of sales. And then after the selling's over with, I always say once the sale happens, that's really the start of the selling point, right?
Yeah, you have to continue
Because you have to continue
maintain.
it, right? You have to maintain it. You have to up your game. You have to stay in constant communication with them.
Yeah.
There may be bumps in the road.
Yeah,
right?
sometimes.
Right, Kapok
But-
Marketing?
Yes, but it's how you treat those bumps in the road.
Right.
Like if you do it well, then the relationship becomes even more solid, in my
Absolutely.
opinion. And I think that applies to anything.
Absolutely.
And it's like everyone's happy when things are good.
Right.
It's when
When it gets
ish
a little
hits
rough.
the fan.
Yep.
Like, how do we handle this? And was this company here for me? If they were not, then it's not going to look good.
Right.
So,
So there's the service side to it,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which at the Rowdies and the Rays, we have somebody who serviced the accounts. But regardless of anyone who's servicing the accounts, I always like to stay in contact with those individuals as well.
Yeah. And you're
Because I
really
think it
good
just
at
helps
that.
building the relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you're really, really good.
Yeah.
You're very like on point. Some people are just like hot mess express.
Well, I
and-
think it's one of those things, right? Again, you get to some salespeople and their focus is just on the money, right?
Yes.
So listen, at the end of the day, I'm in sales because I also like money.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I want to
mean,
sell.
we all
I
have
want
to eat.
Yeah, I want to make money.
Yeah.
But I really like the relationship aspect, getting to know individuals, getting to know their business. You get to learn so many different industries, how they work, how they function,
Mm-hmm.
how their business works.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of get that entrepreneurial mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? And understand where they're coming from. But with all that being said, I would say where some of my successes come from, I'm not the best salesperson, right? There's plenty of other salespeople, even in sports that I've met at the Rays, that I've worked with at the Rowdies, that are much better salespeople than myself. But I will always say this, that I pride myself on my work ethic and that I'm going to try to outwork everybody around me, right? And that's not to say that selfishly or pridefully, right? Is pridefully a word?
I
think
don't know,
I just made
Ryan.
that up.
English is my second language, so I don't even know. Don't ask me.
My goodness. But even with that being said, it's okay. Somebody might have a better presentation, and somebody might do a better job in terms of the questions that they ask, right? And I'm going to do my best with that and always look to improve. But one way that I can keep this relationship going is to make sure that after the sale takes place, to continue building upon that relationship, stay in constant communication,
Yeah.
find different ways that I can introduce partners to other partners or to individuals that I know in the community and help connect
Yeah.
to individuals that might benefit from each other.
Yeah.
So it's just, it really comes down to work ethic, right? And that's
Yeah.
what I really pride myself on
True.
over anything.
True.
One of the things you just mentioned is you get to meet a lot of different businesses and different industries. You've also had the opportunity to work in a lot of different sports. It sounds like you've been in soccer, football, baseball. How do all those different things compare? Do you like soccer the most because you play soccer, or
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So growing up playing soccer, definitely have a passion for it. I played baseball growing up too, and I played it in high school. Wasn't good enough to go anywhere with it, so
Okay.
I took the soccer route and
Okay.
helped pay for school, right? So I would say if you asked me when I was in high school or college, hey, listen, you're not going to be a professional athlete, but you're going to work in professional sports, I probably wouldn't have said that I wanted to work in soccer, right? Just right off the bat, because football was so big in the country at the time, and basketball and baseball, right? I was passionate about soccer, but I don't know if I would have said that that was one of the sports that I wanted to work in. At the time, Major League Soccer wasn't where it's at today. So it was kind of looked at as like a minor league sport, or a minor league, I wouldn't say sport, but a minor league essentially, right? It wasn't one of the four major sports. So I probably would have said, hey, baseball or football, right? Once I played in college and just going through my business classes, and once I went to Game Face, when I went to Game Face, I knew I wanted to work in soccer, right? And I think it came down to the passion. I understood the ins and outs of soccer. I understood it from the youth soccer level to the politics involved in soccer to how some of these organizations were run. Whereas on the football and baseball level, I just knew what I saw on the field or what I watched on TV, right? I didn't really know the back end of the business side. It's something that I obviously had to learn on the soccer side as well. But just being involved with youth soccer clubs growing up and knowing people who worked for soccer organizations, it just gave me insight to how they work and operate. With that being said, each one is a little bit different, right? So Major League Soccer, I remember at FC Dallas, it was a sales focused culture, which all of them are. So don't get me wrong
Yeah.
on that. Major League Soccer, NFL, MLB, right? All very sales focused. But soccer's a little bit more relaxed, I would say.
Okay.
Right? Whereas, throughout the course of the week, it was jeans and a polo to work, right? You're going out, you're meeting with, at the time, specifically because I was in the ticket sales department, you're meeting with youth soccer clubs. So if I go out there in a suit and I'm meeting with a youth soccer coach or a youth soccer board,
It's not
they're
gonna be
like,
a good match.
who is this guy?
Yeah.
Right? Who does he think he is?
Yeah.
Right? And he's coming out here telling us, like, trying to sell us on soccer. Like, we work
Yeah.
with kids each and every day. We bring them out to your games, right? We support the club. So we kind of adjusted to who our client was, right? So it was jeans, polo, jeans, button-down shirt, or, business casual, right?
Okay.
NFL, very sales focused, a little bit different. I was in the luxury suite department, so that was suit and tie every day. But also
But you're selling big packages.
you're pitching your clients 6-figure deals
Yeah.
every time you go out, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm speaking to the CEO of a top 10 business in Tampa, I'm not going in there in jeans and a polo, right? He would look at me like, who is this clown, right? So you kind of have to adjust and adapt to your surroundings and who you're working with, right? And then with the Rays and the Rowdies, it depends who I'm meeting with, right?
Okay.
So
today you're casual because you're wearing jeans.
so today I'm a little bit more casual.
Friday.
I didn't
It's
have any
Friday.
meetings today.
Okay.
Right. I know my customer, right? When I come in and meet with you guys, I'm not going to come in a suit, right? Maybe the first time we met, I might have been in a button down and a coat or just a button down.
Yeah.
But once I get to know you, right, I knew that you were the only clients I was going to be seeing today. So yeah, casual most of the time. And I never wear jeans unless it's Friday, right?
Oh, okay.
And if I have any presentations, I'm typically in suit coat, no tie, open collar, but suit coat and business casual, right? And then throughout the rest of the week, it's button down shirt or a polo, just depending again who I'm meeting with, what the conversation is. If I'm making calls all day and sitting in the office, just depends what I'm doing. So,
All right.
but the culture of each of the organizations, all of them are very sales focused. All of them are just a little bit different in terms of how they manage individuals and people. But I can tell you, each organization puts their employees first, which is great. So sports is supposed to be fun.
I know.
You get into sports. Yes, you're in the business world, but we're all in sports because we're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And because as a kid, you played it or maybe you watched it, and that was kind of your time to get away from everything else happening in
Yeah.
life, right? It was your escape.